got my master's at Lamar University.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have 5:30. We're ready to start our meeting. I'm Eliza Vasquez. I'm the chair for PUBCAP. I'd like us to start with introductions, beginning at my far right.
Far right, it's me, Chester Gonzalez.
Joe Medrano.
Griselda Muñoz.
Patricia Cavazos.
Sergio Martinez.
Thank you. I will remind everybody that we are live streaming this meeting, so please speak into the microphone so that everybody can hear us. Next order of business, oh, I'm sorry. Can we have the directors introduce themselves, please?
Good afternoon. Marie Leal, I'm the Director of Special Projects and Water Wastewater Engineering and Planning.
Hello, I'm Vicente Guerrero on behalf of the Environmental Services.
Eli Perez, Market Operations Manager, on behalf of the PUBCAP Engineering Division.
Again, Paulus, the General Information Platform Manager on behalf of the Communications Corporate.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Luis Larraga. I'm the Senior Communications and Public Relations Coordinator. I'm the caretaker for the meeting today as Ms. Glady Quesada is out on leave.
Thank you. Do we have anyone from the public in attendance? Okay, next item of business is approval of the October 18th, 2023 minutes. Do I have a motion?
I second that.
Chester and Sergio. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Approval of the October 18th, 2023 minutes. Thank you. Next item of business is old business. Luis, do you have a report for us?
Yes, Madam Chair. I wanted to touch on a few topics. In last month in October, we did have our community tour, which highlighted the electrical system of the utility. We had a good turnout, about 15 participants, and we were able to visit the Silos Ray power plant, which was great. Unfortunately, last year, due to some construction at the site, we were unable to visit, and we also got a chance to see one of the substations, the Rio Grande substation. It was a good turnout. Everybody had a good time, and I think it opens the eyes of the participants of everything that goes into delivering the services that we deliver.
Absolutely.
We also had a veterans breakfast for employees who are military veterans last week. It was a great turnout. It's just obviously a breakfast is just a small token for everything that they did to serve the country and for all of us. But it was a really nice event. I believe some of you were in attendance, and so it was great to have you all here. And that's it.
Does anybody else have anything for old business? We'll go on for new business. Do you have anything under new business, Luis?
Yes, a few things. First of all, we are having the BPUB end of year celebration or / Christmas party that'll be held on Saturday, December 9th from 6:30 to midnight at the event center. I believe PUBCAP members should receive an invitation if they have not already done so. RSVPs are required by November 30th, so be on the lookout for that. And this will be in lieu of a formal meeting for December. The other thing is, starting in January, there's the bill redesign will finally be launched with the purpose of making it easier or simpler for the customer to read and understand. And I believe there was an internal committee who had some input on the redesign. And I believe some PUBCAP members had some input as well as customers. I understand this is a project that was delayed due to the pandemic, but it will be launching in January.
So January 1st,
I believe so, just when I think everybody's bills
different times.
at different times. That's all I have.
Anybody else have any new business? Okay, we'll go on to presentations. I believe we have someone here from South Wastewater Treatment Plant to talk to us about the new improvements.
Good evening, Chairwoman Vasquez, members of the panel. My name is Ricky Pineda, and I'll be presenting one of my projects at the Southwest Water Treatment Plant. Yes, hold it. Okay, so a little bit on the project overview. So on this presentation, I'll give you a background on the project, the improvements done on the plant, construction photos, and then I'll open the board for some questions. Some background on the project. On this project, we had to get a good team to do these improvements and the design because it was a high dollar contract and it was critical for the treatment of our wastewater. So we got Friesen Nichols as our engineer of record. The contractor, Garney Construction, they do a lot of wastewater construction projects throughout the nation. Friesen Nichols, as well as a designer, they do a lot of wastewater designs and water designs. We had DN Tanks do some improvements on one of our digesters that had a large crack on it, a large vertical crack. Robert Kistner was our geotech lab on the project. They did all the materials testings and quality assurance for us. Our inspector was David Betta. The contract amount was $5.4 million with a contract time of 550 days. This project was funded by Oakland Union, partially funded by the Oakland Union Power Plant decommissioning. So the plant improvements included some structural analysis of one of our digesters, like I previously mentioned. It was rehabilitated. The headworks grid system was improved. We put in additional equipment to improve the grid removal. Aeration basin number 1, the influent channel was starting to differential settle. So we had to anchor it down with some helical piles to stop that settling. Aeration basins 1, 2, and 3, we introduced some dissolved oxygen probes to make sure that the raw sewage and the return activated sludge had the proper amount of oxygen needed for the decomposition of the raw sewage. We also replaced some four stainless steel 12-inch manual air butterfly valves just to shut off, and open the valves for air introduction. So some photos and the layout. This is, again, the South Wastewater Treatment Plant. On the left, you'll see our aeration basin number 1, where we installed these the solid oxygen probes. Aeration 2 to the right of it. And in the middle, we have our headworks, which removes the large particles that come in through the sewer. It also removes the grit, which is sandy material, pebbles, any small fragment. And then on the right, you'll see our aeration basin number 3. Digester number 1 is outlined there. We have 4 digesters. Just this one displayed that large vertical crack. That tank, just for representation, it's about maybe 30-foot high. It's a tall digester. So this is it here. You'll see on the right this crack that was discovered a couple years ago. So it wasn't like this. The contractor had to go in and chip out the concrete wall to make it larger. You can't introduce small amounts of concrete because it's not strong enough, so it won't bond to the concrete. On the left, they were removing the existing reinforcement, which were there were a lot of bands, it's about 1/8 inch in diameter, and they were spaced at about 2 inches on center. This is what the designer recommended. These are about a 3/8 inch in diameter tendons, which are anchored on both sides of the tank, and then they're post-tensioned. So this is what's what's containing the tank from the hydrostatic forces inside the tank. This is our end product on the outside. After the tendons have been post-tensioned, it's covered with shotcrete and painted. On the inside, we had to coat it as well to maintain a good sound concrete. This is one of the 4 grid basins. On the left, when we removed some of these panels, water control panels, we discovered that the protective coating on the concrete was peeling off. So you can see it was in real bad shape. So we had to coat it, and you'll see it on the right side. It was maybe about a 1/4 inch in thickness, and then that white thing on the center on the right side, that's our head cell. That's what actually creates a vortex, and it separates the grit towards the center where then it's pumped out. On this part, this is the influent channel that leads toward aeration basin number 1. So this is the one, that shallow footing is what's settled. So because it's so heavy, it's a really big chunk of concrete, it started to differential settle. And to prevent that, they introduced those helical piles that went down maybe 20, 30 feet down. And this is what's going to be now carrying the load. Instead of the shallow foundation, that's going to be carrying the load. So in summary, this project, even though it was a high dollar amount, it really helped out on the south plant. It extended the life of many equipment. The digester number 1, by 30 or more years, aeration basin number 1 as well, the digester. And again, the digester now as well is about 30 years. So, any questions?
You said that, I heard you say this took 2 years?
The project was 550 days, so, right, yes,
From the time that you noticed the
Right.
crack?
correct.
So was there any leakage, or how did
Oh,
you
no.
notice the crack? on
Sorry,
that?
no, so we noticed that crack a couple years ago. So there was no leakage because the crack didn't go all the way to the inside. It was a superficial crack. So we had to make it larger so we can put new concrete in. But no, there was no leakage. The reinforcement on the inside is fine.
So when you showed us the picture of those tendons, and then you showed us the final product, were those tendons taken out, or did they lay that concrete over those?
Right, so they put the tendons and then they shotcrete it. So they put a layer of concrete on the outside. That protects the tendons from corrosion.
Okay. The other question I had is, the engineer and the contractor, are they from the RGV, or they're out out of the?
So Frick and Nichols, Friesen Nichols are nationwide, and Garney, I don't know if they're from Texas, but they do work as well nationwide. They're both very reputable contractors and engineers.
Anybody else have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question. So one of the last things you said was it extended the life by 30 years or more. That's very important. That's pretty important to the consumer. And while hearing your report is probably at a level much more engineer-centric than mine, is there an opportunity, just in excuse my language, but in Joe's six-pack language, that we could let the public know we have extended the life of you said you were on something, and I'm sorry I didn't write that down. But I thought it's very important here. This extending the life of anything mechanical, anything that serves the community for an additional 30 years. There's a cost involved, but what would have been the long-term cost if we hadn't, taken care of this? I think those things are real important for not just this table, and this committee, but for the public. I know that, and again, I go back to, the language there is at a level much higher than I am able to comprehend, and probably the average person too. But there is a way to translate that to very basic. This is what we're doing. This is what we're doing, and this is what we're doing. With those pictures, just a couple of pictures. I mean, that's quite impressive. Mm-hmm. There was a crack. They put whatever
the tendons,
was, the tendons around that, And I would see that from, again, a very elementary standpoint, as though was that like a rebar where you might not, and I don't mean to call it rebar, but if I'm looking at a project on the ground and I'm putting in a sidewalk and then I put rebar in, that reinforces it. So is that kind of the equivalent of that on a much greater scale, and then you wrap it or with whatever else to tighten it up? So I think even in my limited ability to explain that, to be able to translate that information just with a post, just with an announcement, and maybe that was done. And that's, maybe I've talked here for 3 minutes and not asked if that was done, but if it hasn't, then it should be. But in terminology that the consumer would be able to understand, oh, that's where this money's going. And there's some thought in what it's going to do in 5 years, in 10 years, and in 30 years. And I think that's very impressive. So I'll stop now.
Thank you.
I agree.
That's a great suggestion.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pineda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pineda.
Next presentation is Southmost Elevated Storage Tank Project.
Good afternoon. My name's Marie Leal, and I'm the Director of Special Projects and Water Wastewater Engineering here at BPUB. And to elaborate a little bit on the point that you were bringing up, I believe that the plan is for us to showcase some of the projects in our website. So I think long-term, there's going to be a plan where customers can come and click and be aware of the projects that are ongoing through our utility, and absolutely put it in terms that the customers can understand. And you are right. I mean, we're looking at costs. The costs are extremely high if we want to expand, whether it be our brackish water plant or a wastewater plant. You're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. So anything that we can do, some of these projects do take millions, 5 million, 10 million, but yet having it extend the life of it and prolong the life is a lot better than starting from scratch on some of these structures. And cost continues to skyrocket. So, well, today I'm going to present to you on the Southmost Elevated Storage Tank Project. I know that some of you were able to attend our ribbon cutting last Tuesday. So you'll hear some of the stuff again. It'll be a little bit of redundancy, but today you get to also see it in pictures and a couple of videos. So maybe I'll make it a little bit more visual than I did last week at the ribbon cutting. The project overview today will go over some of the project history on our elevated storage tanks, project scope, procurement and budget, construction, lots of photos, like I said, and a couple of videos, and then a few lessons learned on the project, as in any other project, and then Q&A, any questions that you all may have. Project history, as a lot of people probably know and notice, is that BPUB water distribution system, we have several elevated storage tanks throughout the city. We have specifically 4 elevated storage tanks, and back in the day, they used to label them by numbers, and the abbreviations EST is for elevated storage tank, number 1, number 2. So we continue to have the same sequence of numbers, even though some of those tanks are no longer in existence. For example, we had the Southmost Elevated Storage Tank number 4. That was the one that got demolished, and I'll explain a little bit more later on. That had a capacity of 1 million gallons. We have what we call the UTRGV Elevated Storage Tank number 5, and that's the one that everybody knows by the McDonald's as you enter the university. That also has a capacity of 1 million gallons storage. Alton Glore, EST number 6, that's on the East Alton Glore, close to the expressway, that has a capacity of 2 million gallons. And Martinal Tank, that's located, maybe the one that not that many people are familiar with the name. It's located just north of our Robindale wastewater treatment plant off of Central Avenue in FM 802. That has a capacity of 2 million gallons as well. The total storage volume of all tanks is 6 million gallons, and the volume of El Jardín water supply, we are able to count their 1 million gallon capacity tank that they have towards our storage, because we wholesale the water to El Jardín water supply, and that gives us a total volume of 7 million gallons of storage. And of course, TCEQ has requirements, which is based on the population of the cities as to what we are required to have in storage. So a history on the two that are related to this project, and that is elevated storage tank number 4 and number 5, which is the southmost, and the UTRGV tank. Those were built in 1969, and that makes them over 50 years old. These were not concrete tanks, these were steel tanks, and the life of basically almost all concrete structures is about 50 years. So they were way past even the life expectancy of a concrete structure. As the outcome of our 2015, every 5 years, we are also required to have a master plan of where our utility is going in water and wastewater infrastructure. And it was recommended in this last master plan that that these 2 tanks needed to be replaced. We also did very in-depth inspections the following year in 2016, and it was decided that we would demolish both of these tanks in order to remain compliant with TCEQ, and also, most of all, to have safe critical structures. So we began demolishing the elevated storage tank, the southmost one, in early 2018. And as soon as we did that, we also started to work on the plans for the design of a new elevated storage tank. This new elevated storage tank was going to be twice as big in capacity, with 2 million gallons, so that it could replace the 2 tanks, the UTRGV and the southmost one. And everybody asks about the UTRGV one. One of the requirements by TCEQ is we couldn't demolish both of them at the same time. So the UTRGV is still up, but we need to begin the plans to demolish that one, and we should be demolishing that by late spring of 2024. So that one is going to also come down. Nothing is going to replace it at that location, because the one that we just finished constructing replaces it in capacity. To give you an aerial view of the tank locations, and I don't have a pointer, at the very top, straight at the north end, we have the SRWA. That's a ground storage tank, and the difference is that it's flush to the ground, and we use pumps to push the water into our distribution, versus an elevated one is, of course, elevated height, and the flow that produces the gravity flow allows the water to flow into our distribution. So Alton Glore, as everybody knows, is on Alton Glore in the expressway, and then the Martinal one is the one that you see in the center of the page on the east side of the city. And then the UTRGV is the one further south, and the one in yellow is the brand new one, the southmost 2 million gallon elevated storage tank. So this is the property that we purchased. It is 4.4 acres in size, and for those that are familiar with the Southmost Boulevard, it's a couple of blocks in along 30th Street from Southmost Boulevard, and it's very near the proximity of where the old one was. And one of the benefits of that we looked specifically for property nearby, so that whatever water lines we needed to construct to tie into our main distribution lines wasn't too far away. So this was the closest property that we could that was really available. As you can see, the rest of Southmost area is pretty populated. An interesting fact on this property, it was purchased from late Judge Saravia. For those that remember, he was a longtime justice of the peace, so he's the person that that sold this property to the utility. Procurement and budget of the project. This design team consisted, also happens to be the same design team as in Ricky's project at the South Plant, Freeze and Nichols, Dunham Engineering, and Square E Engineering. Square E Engineering provided the electrical work. Dunham Engineering provided some of the civil site and a lot of the welding and the structure testing. The project was bid on July 21st, 2021, and it came in at a bid of $5.782 million by Landmark Services. Landmark Services, of course, performs, for many, many years, they've constructed lots of elevated storage tanks throughout the nation. They're housed, I believe, in mid-Texas, near Dallas, but they do tanks. They actually built the one on our Martinell tank as well. Project timeline was 1 year. The original project timeline was 1 year, 4 months, and we gave them an additional 10 months were added due to scope of work that we added, and that is what I'm about to go over. Change in scope of work is done by what we call in engineering like change orders, change in the contract amounts. So one of the very first things that we did, originally this project was not designed to have an active mixing system. None of our other tanks have this. This is a more modernistic approach to it, as an active mixing system continuously keeps the water fresher by agitating it inside the tank. The second one was the largest scope of work that we changed on the project, and that was the construction of 30th Street water line. It was the water line infrastructure that was needed for us to fill the tank, and I'll cover that in a little bit. That came in at a cost of $697,000. And that was also a large part of us adding those 10 additional months to the project. We had change order number 3, that another more modern approach that we did on this tank was that all our other tanks have antennas on top for communication, and our past executive team really felt that we needed to get away from so many physical antennas on top of the tanks and go with underground fiber optic communications. And so we implemented this change on the tank. The final change order was utility conflicts that were encountered under 30th Street when we were doing the water line connection. Overall, the total project cost ended up being $6.839 million. That's approximately 18.3% overruns. And just to give you an idea, usually within a contract we have up to a 25% overrun that once you get higher than that, then the contractor has options to change their bid prices and so forth. So we were still under that. So substantial completion was completed on October 18th, and that was when we commissioned the tank pump, and I'll show you some pictures on that shortly. The lead construction managing team, of course, was Freeze Nichols. I served as the project manager, and project inspector was also David Vera. BPB, there was several departments that had to be involved. The larger groups were, of course, the SCADA group, the electrical transmission and distribution, and also our water wastewater operation crews they brought in the fiber from the South Wastewater Treatment Plant. The fiber travels above aerially from pole to pole, and then when it reached our property, then they went underground all the way into the tank. And of course, there's lots of departments involved. A big one was purchasing. They assisted tremendously in, we purchased, when we were doing the water line along 30th Street, that's when PVC was in a huge shortage of pipes and fittings. And in order to save time and be able to have the pipe installed in time for the tank, not to delay the contractor, purchasing assisted us with obtaining the PVC pipe. And of course, you're going to see a map where there was numerous traffic control, lots of roadway closures, lots of notifications for those people that lived in the area. So PR department played another big task in putting out the notices to the public. And of course, financial department in assisting us with the funding and so forth. The tank stands approximately, and I'm gonna go to the next one so you'll be able to see this view instead. So this is a concrete pedestal. The pedestal is the trunk of the tank. It's hollow. You'll see photos of it as well. Basically what holds the 2 million gallons is that top portion, or the bowl that we call it. That top portion is made of steel. The overall tank is measured from the bottom to the high water mark. The high water mark is right above the welcome sign. That's the portion of the structure. That's 138.5 feet tall. And the concrete pedestal portion of it is 98.5 feet tall, and it has a diameter of 46 feet wide. The top bowl that holds the water, that's 95 feet wide by 40 feet tall. And that's the part that basically holds 2 million gallons of potable water. There was 1,015 cubic yards of concrete poured, 58 tons of rebar, 75 sheets of steel for the top portion of the tank. All of the steel total was about 276 tons, and it took them about 1,894 hours of welding, which is pretty much like 79 full days of welding on the tank. This is after all the welding. This is the bottom portion of the bowl, and all of those are the big sheets of steel that were welded together to mold it to its size. And once that is completed, you say, well, why is it at the bottom? They do everything at the bottom, then it gets jacked up hydraulically to sit and fit on top of that pedestal that's 98 feet high. Now, I'm not sure if I'll be able to, how could I play the video? Oh, there we go. Oh, there we go. I think we're having, but the volume, remember? Still a little bit high? I think it worked last time. They were able to do it. No? Okay, we'll go without sound. Okay, well. Technical difficulties. Let me see. Moving on to the 30th Street water line construction. Just an overall layout of where this water line was constructed. This is the property where the tank was being built, and we had to connect from here, from the tank, to Southmost Boulevard, where our main other water line, another 16-inch water line, was going to feed water, in other words, to the tank. This was done in phases, so we had to close the roadway in phases and detour traffic around. Coming out of the tank, there's a 20-inch diameter water line, and right where, when it hits 30th Street, it becomes a 16-inch water line. What was difficult about this was not necessarily along 30th Street, but we had to, Southmost Boulevard is a TxDOT highway, so we had to bore that under the street. And it also impacted, it happens to be where we were doing the joint of the two water lines. It impacted the parking lot of Cromack Elementary School. So we had to get special permission for a temporary easement from BISD, and a little bit of delays in BISD requiring us to wait until school was out so that we wouldn't impact the traffic in their parking lot. But overall, the contractors did a really good job, being that it was still extremely deep underground. And what they do, what you see here in the middle photo, is that they join the pipes and together above ground, and then this far right photograph is they start placing it down in the excavated hole in the ground, and then they start pushing it. And that is what we call a bore under the road. You know, they hydraulically force the pipe underground without having to tear the pavement above it. And this is a steel casing that they push it with, the photo on the left. This is the inside of the tank. And I think those that assisted last week's ribbon cutting were able to see what the inside looked like. This was still pretty messy under construction, but those are the main pumps are shown here, and the middle one, these are all the electrical panels and all of the controls, so that the plant operators can have communication and controls of the tank. Everything is done remotely. Just some photographs of the tank. There's still substantial, the tank is operational right now, but there's still some landscaping. Now we got some delays due to the rain this last week, but there's landscaping, irrigation, and some other grading to be done at the site. And again, this is another video. It had nice music, but we're going to go without the music.
Marie, in those photos, that tank is painted?
I'm sorry?
The storage tank is painted?
The bowl part
The bowl
is.
part of it?
The bowl. And that's when they were stenciling the BPUB logo. And again, they paint it, they seal it, they paint it, they well seal, paint everything when it's on the ground, and then they just hydraulically lift the entire bowl. Once that bowl is up in the air, then they complete the dome portion up in the air to close it off. pump commissioning and training. This is just two photographs of, we had quite a diverse group. We had to have all of our water, wastewater mechanics and plant operators on site so that they could know what valves they needed to familiarize themselves with, what shuts off, what water lines going up into the tank. And another thing that we did that day that turned out perfectly was that the pressures. They bumped up the pressure of the water leaving the tank, and we had to coordinate and check the pressures within our distribution system to make sure that everything was holding fine, and everything turned out okay. So lessons learned. A couple of lessons learned on this was the 30th Street water line. We could have constructed this before the tank, but that would have meant that we would have been constructing it during the pandemic. Because at the time, we didn't anticipate that there was going to be scheduling conflicts in material, right when we got out of the pandemic. That is when there was a huge shortage of PVC pipes, and also price increases on every aspect of it. And also conflicts with BISD. If, in hindsight, yes, we would have constructed the line then maybe the summer before, and we wouldn't have had the couple of 4 or 5 months delay due to having to wait for summer school to be out and do the work adjacent to Cromack Elementary. And then we could have originally also put the 30th Street water line project and bid it together from the start with the actual tank instead of keeping them separate. But again, one of the positive and the biggest positive thing that came out of this is that we bid it, I guess, right in the middle of the pandemic. But if we would have waited 6 or 8 months longer, a project of this size, which came in at 5.8 million, we were actually seeing bids in other sections of South Texas where these size tanks were coming in at $8 to $10 million.
Wow.
And they continue to be that high. So those were just a couple of the lessons learned on that. So I'll entertain any questions.
I have a question. First of all, my remark is, thank God for engineering services. That you guys can build something like this is just, it boggles my mind. I'm a lawyer, what do I know, right? But you stated in your report that the 5 EESTs have a storage volume of 6 million gallons. Now, what's the total capacity that the master plan calls in storage capacity to service this area? Do you know?
What's the storage capacity?
Yeah, what does the master plan say? Does it say we should have a facility that would allow us to have storage capacity and volumes of water to service the area? Perhaps in 10 years, it's going to grow from what it is today to this number.
Right. It's basically TCEQ that regulates that. So we are meeting what the TCEQ requirements are. Now, for example, right now we're in the process of planning. We have a consultant already working on our next master plan, and Brownsville continues to grow tremendously. I am pretty sure that, and also it takes about 18 to 20 months for these master plans to be completed. And I can almost guarantee it that in 18 months, when we review and present this new master plan, it's going to call that we're going to need an additional 2 million gallon elevated storage tank, and it's going to have to be on the northwest side of town.
And just to clarify a couple of things, because I'm not familiar with how this works, is the total capacity required to service this area, it's not just 6 million gallons, right? That's just for the elevated storage tanks.
Correct.
You have other storage facilities.
Yes, every plant has what we call clear wells, and I I can't point out where they're located, but each plant has underground clear wells that stores water. We have the surface tank at SRWA that stores water. So yes, on a daily basis, we have two surface water plants, and that means that we get water from the river, from the Rio Grande River. Those each have a capacity of 20 million gallons per day. So we have two of those, and then we have, of course, the brackish water or desalination plant that we call it. That gets water from the aquifer, from water wells, and SRWA, we produce and put into the system probably 7.6 million gallons per day.
Per day.
So that's the daily, those are the daily production in our plants.
Okay, and the master plan is good for how many years? 5 years, 10 years?
It's recommended every 5 years. We're slightly behind because of the pandemic. We're by about a year. But yes, it's done every 5 years. But in the plan, it will describe what our pretty much like a 10 or 15 year plan for the utility should be. It'll identify what projects, what our CIP or our main construction projects should be and the areas that we need to focus on.
Well, I think this is fantastic in the way that the engineering is able to, create these monoliths, these monsters of water storage. It just amazes me how that's done. And this way we'll always have water, right?
I'm sorry?
We'll always have water for our citizens.
We're supposed to have water in our aquifer, like for SRWA, they guarantee that we'll have water for, next 60 years or, so.
Good.
The Rio Grande River, well, we're struggling with that. And the drought continues though. So we're still in the stage 2.
Thank you.
I had a couple of questions. So you said that SRWA has an underground tank.
It's a ground storage tank.
So what capacity is that?
I believe that's 750,000 gallons.
And so when they put the bowl on the pedestal, how do they adhere that? I mean, is that welded onto the pedestal?
Yeah, they created a foundation or like a rim up there on top of the cylindrical pedestal. They have it niched and hydraulically they make it fall into place, and then it's, of course, welded, sealed, and double sealed to create a tight container.
Seal. I guess my other question is, what are the ages of the other tanks? Which is the next one? I mean, which is the next oldest tank?
After we demolished the UTRGV one, we're basically going to be left with all concrete elevated storage tanks. So the oldest of Alton Glore, first it was of concrete tanks, first came Alton Glore, then Martinal, and now Southmost.
So how many years left, effective years do we have on that one?
That life, the life of the concrete tanks will be a lot longer than the steel ones that we had. So if it was 50-plus years, I'm sure, I believe Alton Glore, I'm not sure when it was built, in the either late 70s or early 80s. Martinal is only maybe 12 to 15 years old. So that's very new, in concrete years.
Right.
I have a question. So the elevated ones are, I guess they have more capacity to store water than the underground, or not necessarily?
Not necessarily. The difference from underground or ground storage to elevated, ground storage depends on the size that you're building. There also can be very expensive, but the difference is what the usage is for. The elevated ones are to give you gravity, where the water will gain velocity and go into a pipe with pressure or velocity to get to people's homes. That's what elevated gives you. Ground storage, they might be a little bit less expensive, whatever, but then you have to include the cost of pumps to give you the same pressure and velocity of the water to get into the pipes.
Thank you, Marie.
So,
What's the life expectancy of this new tank?
you know, I don't know the life expectancy of it, but I do know that it's definitely over 50 years.
Over 50 years,
Yeah.
okay.
50, 60 years. There will be work every year. That's another thing. They do require maintenance. Every year, we have to do inspections, and to the point that in the past, they would bring divers in, and divers would go into the bowl to inspect the wells for, you know, the seals. And now, with technology, now we're going more robotic. So it's actually even less expensive to get a contractor to put a robotic camera. And so every year, we get a report. Since they're made out of steel, the top portion bowls, those require all the time oxidation. You know, they require repainting, resealing, probably will require repainting, of course, of the logo and stuff like that. So they do. The pedestal, not so much. There's nothing really that you do to concrete.
Any other questions? Well, I know some of us were there at the ribbon cutting, and it was very impressive, very impressive. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next topic is outreach and live streaming.
Yes, again, good evening. Luis Larga, Senior Communications and Public Relations Coordinator. I'll be talking a little bit about some of the outreach efforts that have been going on, and I have Miguel Callis who will touch a little bit about the live streaming services. So basically, at BPUB, we have outreach efforts year-round, and they fall into 3 different categories, which is education outreach, community events, and our community tours, like I mentioned in just a little bit ago. We've been getting a lot, especially after the pandemic, where a lot of the outreach efforts kind of, dwindled. This last year, we've been really ramping up, and we've been getting a lot of requests from schools, and so there's a lot of career days, careers on wheels, and there's some electrical safety presentations that our quasi-mascot Leo the lineman does for some school-age children. The problem with that is that I get requests, Clay gets requests, Ryan gets requests, everybody gets requests, right? And so PR is in charge of coordinating those, and of course we send the real MVPs of the utility out there to the real experts, right? We send them out there, and we assist in coordinating. But again, since they were coming from everywhere, we didn't really, it's just through email, and we really needed somewhere to hold like a central request. And so with the help of Digital Information Platforms, which is the department that Miguel heads, they created a request form for us, and that now lives on our website, along with our calendar of events. And so a school or any organization can go online, view our calendar, and kind of see if we have a conflict, and then request an event or a presentation of some sort. And so it's just really it's an update on that request form. It's pretty new. I don't think we've gotten any requests on it yet, and so, but we're really going to push that moving forward. And then, of course, with the holidays coming up, last month we were just at Boo at the Zoo for Halloween, but now moving forward, with the holidays around, we typically have an Adopt an Angel program, which is a program where we partner or we collaborate with 2 local nonprofits, Tip of Texas Family Outreach and the Friendship of Women. They provide a list of angels, which are children or teens who might be underprivileged. And so our employees are encouraged to participate in this program. They get to adopt. It's done. They provide a list. Again, digital information platforms makes a form. Us as employees can go online and select. So we'll see that they're one of the angels, or angel number one might be a 2-year-old female, and they like princesses and things like that. And so we're able to adopt one or more of these children or teens. Typically, we get about 150 between the two organizations. Right now, we're still pending a list from one of the organizations, but we already have 150. Last year, we did about 152, and they were all adopted, and so we were able to deliver those Christmas gifts, which is, it's always a nice feeling. And then we have the Christmas parade for Charro Days coming up. And so we're already signed up to have one of our bucket trucks, similar to the one you see on your screen, to parade down in the Christmas parade. And then, so now, Miguel, if you want to come up here and talk about the live stream.
Good evening, members of PUBCAP. My name is Miguel Collis, Digital Information Platforms Manager, and I'll be discussing the launch of our public meetings being streamed live. So we began recording our meetings back in June of 2022, and we were making those available on our website, for the public to view. This was in an effort to increase awareness and transparency for the utility. But there are some limitations to that. For instance, those recordings were not in real time, so they were being made available in about a 24 to 48 hour delay after the meeting, just because of technology constraints. And so most recently we began streaming those our public meetings through YouTube, and so now that's available. Currently the meeting right now is being streamed through YouTube. That's available, for customers to view in real time. Some of the key improvements are mentioned. They have the DVR type capability, so if you come in late to the meeting, you can actually rewind to the beginning and start from there. And so that just gives an increased level of awareness for the community. People that were not able to attend can still view that, and so that really increases our reach, which is the main goal, right? Is that we're trying to get as much awareness for the utility as possible. And also now the meetings are available for viewing as soon as as soon as the meeting ends. They're available on our YouTube channel and our website. Currently also we're doing a big push on social media. If you follow us, you might have noticed some posts promoting the live streaming, so we're doing that. So to get to the live streaming on our website, you can actually go through the search and look for the meeting that you're trying to look for, whether it be a board meeting or anything like that. There's also the meeting section at the top of the menu where you can see a list of all the upcoming meetings. And that's usually charted out throughout the year. We're in the process of updating the calendar to include upcoming meetings. And right now, this was the meeting for today, so we include the meeting time and location and an iCal link that you can add to your calendar just in case you want to keep that. And then this was the meeting today. It was scheduled. This was recorded yesterday, so you'll see that it'll tell you when the meeting is going to go live. Additionally, there's some other touch points on the website. We've got the upcoming meetings at the bottom, so all the meetings for the month and next month, and then also the past meetings are also viewable and easily accessible from the front page of our website. So really that's the main goal, is to just create as much awareness for the utility and create more accessibility for the community. Do want to give a quick update though. We do have, you mentioned, increasing awareness through the community as well. We just launched our Instagram account. Okay. So I just want to let you all know, if you do have Instagram, feel free to follow us on there. We really try to push company culture, and all our outreach events are posted on there as well. And then we also recently launched a profile on Nextdoor, if you're familiar with that. So, we encourage you to follow us on there too. Again, this is all in an effort for us to have a wider reach within the community. So that's the updates I've got.
Any questions from anyone?
What social media platforms is PBUB currently on?
Currently, we have, we're all on the major platforms. So now we have Facebook, Twitter, or X now,
X.
Instagram, YouTube, Nextdoor, LinkedIn. So we've got quite a few.
Great, thank you.
I have a comment and a couple of questions. So my comment is, I think that's great that we've got this Adopt an Angel program. And my question on that is, what is the nomination process for a nonprofit to be considered for that program?
I'll have to get back to you as far as what the process is. I know the two that I've been a part of, it's been the same two organizations. I'm not sure how far back that goes. So I don't have an answer for you right now, but I can certainly get back to you about that.
Okay, and the second, and I don't know if I missed this in the presentation, once the PUBCAP meeting like this one goes live, is there an opportunity for a community member who's not here to ask a question and that we go through that process while we're here live?
Currently, we don't do that. We're just, actively streaming the meeting. So we're currently relying on the current process for public comment, and those would be addressed, during the meeting as you've done. But that's certainly something we can look into and see if we can maybe incorporate some of that. I do know that on when we make that live, people are able to comment on those videos. So, we monitor that as well. But just so you know, we typically haven't gotten a lot of comments on our videos. So,
Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Miguel. And appreciate all your efforts to bring more awareness to the public. Our next item of business is public comments. Do we have any public comments?
We do not have any public comments.
I do have a general question. How far northeast and northwest of the city does our service area go? I don't know if there's anybody here that can answer that. Whether utility or water. I mean, like on the west side of town along 281, how far
I'm
is
familiar
our
with
reach?
the water and wastewater service. On the west side of town, we have other entities that there's areas where we overlap with other entities. For example, pretty much we go up to right on the line of Carmen Avenue and 281. However, there's an area below that military highway water supply also services. So that is the end of their system, and who knows? One day in the future there might be more definite lines where they recede their end, and it would only be BPUB. On the north, if you go on the expressway in the Olmito area, we have Olmito water supply, which they provide water and wastewater as well to that area. So ours pretty much is encompassed by Old Dallas Road and maybe the toll in SH 550, the north frontage road of SH 550 and Old Dallas Road. We have a portion of that a little bit north of that, and then the rest you start being surrounded by Olmito water supply, and then you have El Jardín. East Rondo water supply on the north of that. Then on the On the east side of Brownsville, going towards Boca Chica Beach, we overlap services with El Jardín Water Supply, MBPUB. Again, we are the wholesale providers to El Jardín Water Supply, but yet they have their CCN. It's called the dual CCNs in the areas where we overlap.
And we do not service SpaceX.
There is no active CCN in that area. There was one, but it was defunct, so it is no longer in existence. We go up basically up to a little bit to Yolanda del Rio, I believe. There's a couple of roads that are that intersect with Highway 4, but before Massey Road. Once you get out there, right now there is no existing CCN.
But the Port of Brownsville is a client. We cover that area?
The Port of Brownsville is a wholesale customer of water only. They provide their own wastewater treatment. And for SpaceX, we have a contract to supply hauled potable water to them. But that is as a contract.
Okay.
And I don't know if somebody can answer on the electrical CCN.
Well, we do have our service territory maps available
Yes.
on the website. So off the top of my head, I can't tell you that, but if you do a search for our service territory, all the maps will come out, and you can see all the boundaries for both water, wastewater, and electric services.
Okay, thank you. I think that concludes our meeting. We do not have PUBCAP meeting in December. So our next meeting is going to be January 17th, 2024. I believe that PUB has a Christmas party that we'll all be invited to, and that's going to take place in lieu of our December meeting. If there's no more business, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. We have a first and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?